Hello, beautiful star seeds and light workers, all my loves. Thank you so much for being here for another video on Starseed Academy. My name is Jenny. So just as I was getting set up today for the video, a nice orb streamed right past me. So as soon as I get on to Zoom, it's always orbs galore, like orbs galorbs. It's all over the place. So keep your eye out for beautiful orb visitations during this video. But we are actually going to be talking all about soul retrievals today. So I've had a couple of doozies myself, and I know that this is something that people that are going deep into their self-work are experiencing. Now, this isn't usually on the surface. This is usually something that's quite in depth. And I would actually say that soul retrievals tend to come after someone has been working on healing their childhood wounds. So if you're working on healing your childhood, if you're working on forgiveness, if you're working on your nervous system, the next kind of logical or organic step that happens is that you start to have these lifetimes coming up, and it's not even like you have to go looking or go searching. I know some people do, and I guess it's all on what you feel called to, but there is like an organicness to the process as well, where it will just come up, it will just happen, and we're going to talk about how that happens today. So before we jump into today's video, I just want to remind you to make sure that you're subscribed to this channel for new videos every single Sunday. And then I also wanted to mention that I've done a couple of new things inside the Starseed Academy membership. And if you've been kind of unsure of how to start working with me, but you're really resonating with my energy, you really love these videos, I speak your language, it's very insightful for you, then I do feel like Starseed Academy membership is like that perfect first step for somebody, because you get to work with me in live events that we do every single month. And one of those events is always a group reading, which is definitely a fan favorite over there. But I've also included some new things recently. So there are contests now, monthly contests for people to win mini readings with me. And I'm actually choosing 2 people every month. So the chances of being chosen are good. And so this goes to the person that, is kind of like the Miss or Mr. Congeniality inside the group, somebody that I see starting really incredible conversations, supporting others, and their communication, like really just being super supportive, being open, being there for people, entertaining the group, sharing, stories from home, pictures, offers, like a lot of people in there they either are spiritual entrepreneurs or they're right on the cusp of starting their own business. And so that's a great place to bounce ideas off of and get guinea pigs to take your services. And you get a lot of practice, and in exchange, you get really great testimonials and feedback as well. So there's so much happening in there. And that's not even to mention like the regular parts of the membership group, which is the fact that there is, I think we're almost at 200 videos in the resource library. So like video trainings, master classes, healings, activations, astral journeys, like psychic training. Like there's just so much, like I can't even like list it all off. There's like so many videos in there. And these are not videos that you will find on YouTube. They are exclusive to just the membership. And it's just, if you like the videos here, oh my God, you will just be obsessed with the videos there. So, and every single event that we do, it's not that you have to make it to every live event. They all get recorded and then they become a part of that video resource library. So anyway, it's a great community. It's a beautiful space to be. It's like a really accessible price. It's only $88 a month, and you get 2 events every single month, plus all the things I just said: contests, video resources, community, etc. So that is my little personal invitation to anybody that is feeling like they are wanting to work with me and they're not sure where to start. It's like an amazing place to start. Okay. Good. We've said that. Now let's jump into the video. And we're going to talk today about soul retrieval. Now, everybody has their own experiences with soul retrieval, but I do understand them. I've done soul retrievals. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that before, but I used to offer soul retrievals as a session. And I still do them often as a part of my quantum healing if it's necessary. And it's really, really it's very serious. Like it's intense. It feels very, very real when you're experiencing it. And I guess we'll get into that, but I just want you to know that um it's not like a regular meditation. It's not like a regular astral journey. There's a way more serious and intense feeling to it. It kind of takes you out for a couple of days. So I just want you to know it's very real. Okay, so if you're going through this, I want to confirm for you that it's very difficult, it's very real, and it wipes you out. It's such an emotional thing. So let's talk about what it is before, because I just want to get into all of it. But let's start with the basics. Okay, just in case anybody doesn't know, what is a soul retrieval? Like, why do you need to do it? What creates this? So if you experience really intense trauma in either your childhood or in a parallel lifetime, a past life, you might call it. If you have a lifetime where there's intense trauma, so that could be a lot of things: war, being killed, being tortured, losing a child. Oh, there's so many reasons. Being betrayed, like things that don't feel good, things that are really difficult. Or if it happens in your childhood, this can happen too. So I had a very, very abusive and very difficult childhood. So this did happen to me. So what happens is, I've had both situations from the childhood and from other lifetimes. And what happens is, when you experience such intense trauma, you can't process it in the moment that it happens. So I remember being a kid and having things going on around me or being directed at me, and you just go numb. Like you just go into almost like you're in shock in a way, or you just go numb and you just drift out of your body. And that creates like splinters in the soul, or pieces of your soul. So there's two ways to view this. Either a piece of your soul can get like splintered off or shattered off and it floats away, and then you need to retrieve that. But a lot of the time, it's not that that piece has actually gone anywhere. It's that it's gone dormant. So you could picture like that section of your soul that went through that trauma, like the light switch just going off, like, good night. No, I can't do this anymore. And it goes completely dormant. And it's almost akin to what your brain does to protect you. So if you've ever had PTSD or repressed memories or flashbacks, this is the idea, but on a soul level, where your brain, if you've been through like massive trauma, your brain will actually take those memories away for you because it's too much. And that is like that light switch going off in that section of your brain. It's like, nope, nope, nope. We're just turning that off. Too much. Okay. Like nobody could have survived that and been okay or been normal. So for survival techniques, it just gets turned off. Think about if that's happening in your brain, think about it happening on a soul level, and think about losing huge pieces of yourself, huge pieces of your childhood, or actual full lifetimes. Like imagine living it this entire life, but it ended so badly that it just gets turned off, and now you don't have access to it anymore. And what a soul retrieval is, it's turning the lights back on, right? So in either way that you want to view it, I've seen people feel like it's actually splintered off and it's floated away somewhere. It's that part of their soul is gone. That's not really the experience that I've had. I've had more of things going dormant within me, and then I turn them back on. But whatever way, it's either calling back that part of yourself home, or it's turning the lights back on to that version of yourself. And it feels the same. Okay. So either way that you want to view it is correct. So that's why it happens. It's because you literally cannot handle that amount of trauma and be okay. You wouldn't be able to continue on. So in order to this survival mode, your soul's very intelligent. It's just like, okay, well, we don't need to remember that right now. And so let's talk about the childhood part first, and then we'll talk about the other lifetimes. So in your childhood, if this has happened to you, if you've had repressed memories, if you've had like a lot of abuse, you're going to feel, you're going to definitely have parts of your soul that are also dormant. Those are all signs. If you have like no memory of your childhood, or way less than most people, it's hard for you to remember. I can remember hardly anything, especially in certain years. And if you know that there was trauma, if you know that there was abuse, if you have these troubles with memories, if you have PTSD, if you have regressed memories, any of that is going to create that effect in your soul. And so here's how you can try to create a soul retrieval. I will say I'm going to give some examples of my own at the end of the video, so stick around for story time with Jenny, and I'll give you some different ones, a childhood one and some other lifetime ones. I will say for me, I don't ever go looking for it. It's a natural, organic progression of healing that happens because I'm doing the work in other areas. So you don't have to go searching for trauma. You can just work on what you know is there, which in my case, I knew I had a hard childhood. I worked on healing that. I really want to recommend anybody out there that had a difficult childhood. The book that literally saved my life is called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. Unreal. It's unreal. It's like part instructional, like self-help book, but it's also part workbook. So with every chapter you get like a lesson and then a work thing that you fill out. That is what makes it so good. So don't like not do that part. If you really want to see results, go all in. And that is a book that I would absolutely recommend for you for childhood trauma. So that's what I did. I actually just started like reading that book and really doing a lot of that self-care work, journaling, meditating, doing Reiki healings on myself, energy healings on myself, galactic healings, going and getting healings, going and receiving energy healings, massage, whatever I could, talking to people about it, communicating about it. And I eventually ended up like talk therapy did not work for me, but I eventually landed on someone that really did. And it was subconscious, like hypnotherapist. And that really helped me. So I was actively doing a lot of healing to get better. And then naturally, parts of my soul started turning back on their own. And so, but if you are looking for ways to, if you know that you've been doing the work and you're ready for this and it's very intense, so you want to be ready for it, and you're looking for tips as to, or hints as to how you can help it turn back on those parts of you, I would say so this is for childhood, we're talking, use old photos of yourself. So go back and look at, I mean, I've had things like this happen, even just going back through like old Facebook, your profile album. It's like pretty cringy when you get really back far. Go back as far as it will go and really look in the eyes of that version of you, because it's not who you are anymore. And it almost is looking at like a past life. Look in the eyes of that version of you and tell them that you love them. And say to yourself, I am that. That is me. I love you. I see you. I love you. You're okay. We made it. And if you want to go further back, then get photos of yourself as a child and really look in your eyes as the child that you were and say to them what they never heard, like reparent them. And if you don't have photos, and probably a lot of people, if you had difficult childhood, you don't really have, I only have like 2 or 3 photos of myself as a kid, which is really sad. But what you can do then is place your hands on your heart or wherever intuitively you feel like your inner child is hanging out. They should be in the heart, but I often find when we have trauma that they're in the lower 3 chakras. So find them. Maybe they're in the sacral, maybe they're in the root chakra, or maybe they are in the heart. Placing your hands over that area of your body and speaking to your inner child and visualizing yourself at 5 years old or whatever age resonates for you that you would need comfort. And I always tell my clients to picture themselves shrinking down to like 2 inches tall as the adult that you are, and then putting yourself into that chakra and then going in and finding the inner child, that childlike version of you. And when you find them, with your eyes closed, do it like a meditation. Visualize that you go up to them. What do they look like? Like a lot of the times they look sad and lonely. Maybe they've got their knees tucked up and they're hugging their knees and they're got their head in their knees, or they're just looking very afraid or alone. Find them and very slowly and gently and carefully approach them and tell them who you are, and tell them that you love them and that you are taking care of them now, that you are their parent now, that they're never going to experience that hurt again, and that you are here to protect them, to take care of them. And if they're not in the heart chakra, take them by the hand and bring them up into the heart. And if they are in the heart chakra, visualize or ask them where they would like to live within that space. With my clients, I always create like a little cozy kid-size cottage where they can go in, and maybe there's like animal friends, and maybe there's like a nanny that's watching over them if they're really young, or like an angel, or a lot of the times it's Mother Mary, the Ascended Master, getting into that space with them and taking care of them, they just need regular daily life things, making cookies in the kitchen, telling stories, running around outside. That will heal them. Treat them as if they are a real little child inside your body, because they actually are. And to access them, to access that connection, you can use old photos. You can use also old like projects, drawings, art, anything that they've written, journals, stories. If you have access to any of that, use that as well. And then favorite items. Do you still have like a favorite blankie or a favorite teddy bear, or what did they love? And if you don't have it in the physical, can you energetically, when you walk in to meet them in your heart, can you visualize that you're holding their favorite blanket or their whatever, and give it back to them, whatever, to comfort them and to make them feel safe? So all of those things will help to create a soul retrieval in your childhood if it's not happening organically. But also, what's more important than those tips that I just gave you is doing the work. Okay, so really go and check out that book, You Can Heal Your Life, or if you're finding, other books or podcasts or recordings or YouTube videos or whatever it is that's going to help you. Don't give up. If you even just inch your way back to wholeness, back to oneness, you will get there. It's more about the intention, really, than action a lot of the time. So have a really strong intention that you are healed, that your inner child is happy and in your heart and safe, and that you can go and visit them whenever you want. And that will help us a lot as well. Okay, so that's the childhood stuff. Do we want to talk about my childhood experience now, or should I leave that till the end? I think I'll leave it to the end. Okay, so I'll leave my personal stuff to the end. So let's talk about now other lifetimes. So you can call them past lifetimes or parallel lifetimes. It's just other lifetimes where you want to access a soul retrieval. Okay, so you can do this through your Akashic discovery. So you can have an Akashic reading with somebody. Like I offer Akashic readings. Or find a reader out there that you trust, that they're doing clean and ethical channeling, not ego channeling, not anything that's not pure. So find somebody that does it really pure and get an Akashic reading. And you can usually, when you're getting a reading, you can request, I'd like to request to see any lifetime that's ready to be healed, or any lifetime that's ready to come back online or be turned back on or be retrieved. If you word it like that, then you will be led to that. And another thing that you can do is, like, when you receive this vision of yourself in this other lifetime. So start with an Akashic experience. Oh, I actually have a free one that you can try as like a little mini trial. Although I do always recommend really investing in this kind of work and going and getting a proper reading. However, to get you started, there is a free on my website. There's a link below to my website. There is under the section freebies, there's one called Akashic Journey, and it will take you through an Akashic experience where you meet another version of yourself. So set the intention, because your intention really matters. I want to meet a version of myself that can be retrieved. I want to meet a version of myself that I can heal, that I'm ready to heal, that's ready to be healed. And have that intention when you do it. But you can check out that free guided experience on my website. So once you kind of have the information and you've gotten into, okay, who this person is, this version of you, maybe they suffered from a witch wound, maybe they were burned at the stake or drowned, or maybe they were betrayed, or maybe they went through some great big war, whatever it was that was severe trauma that shut this part of your soul down. Whatever it was, the first thing that you need to do is be very accepting and understanding. Treat them like the way you treated your inner child, like somebody that is almost outside of you, like another person. Even though it is a version of you, it's very helpful for you to treat them as if you're meeting them, finding them again. Be very understanding, be very compassionate, be very accepting, even if they did things that you don't agree with. You need to find the space in yourself to try to understand why they did those things. Because that's another piece of this is, soul retrievals, soul splinters, and dormant pieces can happen through you being the one delivering trauma. Maybe you were like a really violent person or manipulative person or hateful person or angry person. And so that can create the same result, but you are the one doling out the trauma to others. And so that I have seen, myself included, every single person has lifetimes like that. You're not always in the light. Okay. It's normal, but it's then really important for you to try to understand why. Why did they do that? How can you find compassion for that version of yourself? Try to understand their story deeply as to why they were driven to that brink like that, because people are not inherently evil. People do evil things because they are hurting inside. Okay, so try to understand, have compassion, work your way to forgiveness. The other way, if it was something that happened to you, the only way this is tough to say, but it's true. The only way to truly heal a lifetime where you were killed or where you were like traumatized in some way, abused in some way, hurt in some way, is to find understanding and compassion for the perpetrator, right? So that can take some time. And I would actually use that exact same advice for childhood healing. Like when I was finally able to forgive everybody involved in my childhood stuff, then I was really set free. And that's the only time you really get set free. And so this really applies. It's like, how can you, and this is where that self-work comes in, how can you drum up some compassion or some understanding, or at least start with acceptance? So it goes from acceptance to understanding to compassion to forgiveness. So you kind of make your way to it, and there's these steps that you take to get there. And it is necessary for true healing. It is necessary for a full soul retrieval. And I've seen people's soul retrievals be stopped, like at the edge of where they've done everything right, but they can't forgive. And they're holding on to anger, or they're holding on to hatred, or they're holding on to vengeance. And it will never, that part of your soul will never truly make its way back to you then. And so it is up to you, and it is in your hands, but it's not easy work. That's what I mean when I say it's no joke. It's not light. It's intense and it's heavy. Okay. So, and then the next tip, this is huge too, is that you need to, because that version of yourself, child or other version in another lifetime, whatever it was, they were not able to process the trauma. It's up to you to now process it. So I just keep saying this is no joke, you guys, because it's so heavy. It's like, in order for you to process that trauma, you have to feel all those feelings. You have to go back to that place. That is extremely difficult to kind of go back to in your mind and in your heart, and allow that version of you to lead. So if we're talking about another lifetime where you were burned at the stake, okay, like that's extreme, but it happens. Let's just use the most extreme example. You would have to be like the sacred witness of that. So that version of you, if you're trying to work with them and call them in, you would then meditate with them. From this Akashic experience, hopefully you have the information that you need, their name. After that reading, go privately and meditate and call that version of you in using their name and say, I am here to help you to heal. I am you, and I am here to take care of you. I am here to be that sacred witness. What do you need to show me? What do you need to share with me? What can I take off of you for a burden? How can I help you? What can I feel for you? If it's too big, if the emotions are too big for them, you can share them, or you can take them on fully, whatever feels right in that moment. Ultimately, you are healing through the expression of the trauma, because they could not express it, right? So if they can't express it, which means get it out of your body, talk about it, cry, scream, write it down, journal, get it out of yourself. If they weren't able to do that, that's why they're turned off. So now when you're talking to them, how can we get it out of them so that it's not like poison inside of their body? Okay, so again, that's the same for inner child. That's the same for a parallel version of you. You need to get it out of their body, and you need to help them express it, or express it for them. And I always say, these are all extreme. Everything we're talking about today is like the most extreme versions of self-work, inner work, shadow work. But I do always say, feel your feelings and you will return to peace. That's the key. And in this case, it's big, but it still needs to be done. Okay. So basically, by doing that with either your inner child or a version of yourself, with your inner child, you'll probably know, and you probably won't need a reading, although there is inner child readings out there, but you'll probably know. If you are completely blocked and have no access to that version of yourself, then go and get an inner child reading. It'll feel like an Akashic reading, like meeting that version of yourself and seeing what they went through. So either do that, or you already know what your went through as a child. Or if it's a parallel version of yourself, the first step is to get an Akashic reading or do the Akashic journey on my website, see what comes through. Always, always set a sacred space around yourself with the archangels. I use Archangel Michael, Archangel Raphael, and Archangel Haniel. Those three are very loving and very protective. Protect yourself and connect to God's source, or whatever term you like for that, with the white light. Okay, so very important. Don't forget that. Sacred space first. Then go deep into your body and ask your inner child to share with you, what do you need me to see? What do you need me to feel? How can I be the sacred witness? What's hurting you? How can I help? Just ask them and let them talk. Don't just talk over them. Create a lot of space where you're listening. You really need to create that quiet space to hear. Use your clairs. Tune into what do you see, feel, hear, and know. Journal it if that helps. And then on the parallel version of you, if it's another lifetime, then that's where you're doing the Akashic journey or getting the Akashic reading, getting all the information, and then privately going and calling on that version of yourself. Use their name. Names hold power. Names call people in. That's why when like one of your guides gives you a name, it's like a great honor. It is an invitation to work with them because you can summon anything if you have its true name. So you want to call in that version of yourself by using the name, call them in. And now you're just into conversation, really heartfelt conversation, feeling your feelings, crying, grieving, screaming, whatever it is. And it's not going to be settled in one session with them. You're going to have to go back when you feel like the heaviness is lifted. Go back in. It shouldn't take, don't get addicted to shadow work. This shouldn't take more than a handful of times, maximum 5. But most people can figure this out in 1, 2, or 3 sessions, sometimes even 1. So let's not get addicted to shadow work. There's so many people that are doing that right now that I know. You got to pull yourself out of that and understand that your intention and your commitment and your decision that it is done makes it so. Don't keep lingering, if that makes sense, going on and on with it. Okay, so you can open up the door like this to soul retrieval. You can lay out the path. You can call them home. But ultimately, it's divine timing. So you can't force it. And that's what I mean when I said it's all happened very organically, because you could roll out the welcome mat and do all the right things and it still isn't clicking. Well, then divine timing says you're not at a time in your life where you can handle this. So you need to be like emotionally stable. You need to be in a good place. And that's why I say do the inner work and it will happen, because as soon as I start working on myself, I get to a place of being strong, emotionally strong and stable. Then my soul feels that and goes, okay, she can handle this now. Here. It's almost like here you go, deal with this now that you're in such a good place, right? It is a gift though. So if you're not getting deep and you're not quite healing or feeling that retrieval of yourself and your gifts and your power and that version of you, then it's probably that you're not ready. So strengthen yourself. Create a routine in your life where you are meditating regularly. Create a routine in your life where you are going outside and walking in nature. It's the little things. Create a routine where you're drinking a lot of lemon water. Get into some healing podcasts. Start to understand what's going on inside of you. Research things like nervous system healing. Read the book I recommended. Do the things, take the steps, and you will get to a place where you're stable enough and pop, it will just happen. Like it will just snap. It will just arrive. And it's so interesting when it does. But yes, ultimately it's divine timing. It's not something that you can force. So what it feels like, let's talk about what it feels like when it does happen. So I've had quite a few experiences like this, and every time it feels like something wakes up inside of me. That is not me. It is me, but it feels separate from me at the time because it's so new. Feels like something waking up inside of you. Someone, not scary. It feels like someone wakes up inside of you, and within you, you now feel like you have two pieces. right? Like you've got yourself that you've always known, and over to the side or in the back, you can hear someone else's thoughts, feel their emotions, feel their personality, which is really weird. Hearing their thoughts and feeling like there's someone else inside with you. There's no other way to say it but that. And that sounds crazy, but it's exactly what it feels like every time that this has happened to me. Then I'll usually go through an integration period, which can be days or weeks or both, because you start to feel the integration kicking in after about 3 days, where they start to feel like they're blending with you. But that process can take weeks, and it usually does take weeks, at least a month, if not longer. Now, again, it doesn't have to go on and on forever, but my longest one felt like it was at least 6 weeks, and that was the last one that I went through. But after 3 days, it started getting easier, and then we just integrated until there was no visible seam between those pieces of who I am. I just became both of those things. Now, after a soul retrieval, you are never the same. You can't go back to the version of you that you were before that. There's no going back. You're never the same, but you feel more whole, more complete, and you actually feel more like yourself, not like someone else. You feel more like you. Because when you wake up these versions of yourself, it's like remembering a part of yourself you forgot about. And it can be really interesting how that can affect your personality and the way that you are and the way that you do things, like everything. It's so crazy how different you can become, but it's you becoming more of you. And so for my last soul retrieval, this you can I'll try to hook up the videos in the corners at the end of this video for the ones that I know I'm explaining it. I have a Sedona video where I talk about this, the last one that I went through. And then I have an Orion video where I talk about that soul retrieval. It's like actually an Orion series of 3 videos talking all about that. So I will link those up. But so for the last one, I was in Sedona when it happened, but I knew about it before. I knew about it years before. This is what I mean by it doesn't click into place. Even if you know about it and you invite it to rejoin you, you invite this version of yourself to be retrieved, a soul retrieval, it's divine timing. So I knew about this version of myself. I had some details. I knew that there was a version of me that had been thrown from a cliff. I thought she might have been a witch, but I wasn't sure. And I knew that my fear of heights, it's not a mental fear. It's not a logical fear. It's actually a physical sensation that happens in my body. So whenever I get to like the edge of something or look over, which I generally would not do because of this feeling, but it also happens if I just see on TV, like if somebody's like teetering on like the side of a building or on a cliff or whatever, I get this awful feeling in my body of panic. But the physical sensation is that from my waist down, I get this like rush of pins and needles every time. And I've been to energy healers to heal this. I knew it was something that was linked to this lifetime because I was getting almost like a claircognizant knowing that, okay, I've been thrown from a cliff in a lifetime. I don't really know who I was. I know I was female. I don't know what the reason was. It might be, maybe I was a witch. I don't exactly know, but here's the physical proof in my body that this is a trauma that I haven't healed yet. So here's an interesting concept for you, okay? If your soul has a wound, that wound will be present in every physical form that you take, because it's like having a cake pan with a dent in it, and then you make the cake over and over and over and over again, and it always has the same dent. Your soul is the pan with the dent in it, and the cakes that you make are your physical forms. So whether you're human or Arcturian or this or that or whatever, if that soul wound is not healed, it will show up over and over and over again. And this is why quantum healing is so important, because quantum healing heals the pan, not the cake, right? It heals the soul. It heals on a soul level, not this version of you. Although it does ultimately heal this version of you, but it's deeper than that. It's a soul level. So that is why these traumas show up over and over and over again. And that's ancestral patterns. That's past life traumas. That can be all trauma. Okay, that's what it's like. So I forget what I was talking about before the cake pan. Oh, that my cake pan moment, the dent in the cake pan for me was that weird feeling in my legs, like from the hips down all the way down. It was uncomfortable. It was very, very like intense, and I couldn't stop it. No matter who gave me the energy healing, no matter how much I did it for myself, you'd think you could heal it if you went to enough energy healers, and it would not heal because it was not divinely timed for me to be able to handle that level of a soul retrieval. So then fast forward, that was years ago, like years and years ago, maybe more than even maybe 10 years, maybe longer. I don't know. It's been a long time since I knew about this and since I felt those physical sensations. So this is what I mean by you can want it, but if it's not divinely timed, it's not going to happen. So then we go to Sedona. Brian and I go to Sedona, and I have always felt a calling to Sedona. Like I've always felt soul called, like my soul's been called there, and I never really knew why. And if you feel called to a physical place, like a location on the earth, please listen to that and go there. If you feel called to anything, if you feel called to working with a certain person, the way that I was getting this nudge about working with this hypnotherapist, or like just all the people that I've worked with, I feel like a soul nudge to do so. It's like this knowingness or this like urgency inside, like that's who you're supposed to be working with. Well, I have that feeling about places on this planet. I had that feeling about Sedona, which I've now visited, and I know why. I wasn't expecting to have a soul retrieval there at all. I just knew I was called there and I thought it was going to be just beautiful and maybe an activation. I had no idea what I was in for. But just also, side note, I feel very, very called, and I have not been here yet, to Easter Island. It's called Rapa Nui, but it's also known as Easter Island, where those statues of the heads are all around that island. I cannot tell you how many times I've dreamt of that place and had the statues speak to me, come to life, pop out of the ground. They have bodies and legs, and they walk around and they talk to me and they tell me to come there. So, I mean, we're definitely going to have to vlog whatever happens when I go there. But back to Sedona. In Sedona, pretty much all there is to do is go hiking on mountains, right? So I'm hiking the very first mountain, but so now we're coupling this weird feeling that I get with heights with the fact that we were on a vortex. And Sedona has many powerful vortexes that are, a vortex is like where ley lines intersect, and it creates a spinning energy. And those spinning energies act like amplifiers, right? So just like a clear quartz is an amplifier for energy, a vortex is even more of a powerful amplifier for your energy. So if you have something that you're working on and you go visit a vortex site, which you don't have to go all the way to Sedona, there's many, you can try to research in your area where ley lines intersect and it creates that spin. This is not a portal. This is a vortex. Okay. That's a whole different thing. So a vortex is an amplifier of energy. And so anyway, back to the story. So here I am on a portal. No, oh my God, I just said that's not what it was. Here I am on a vortex mountain of all things, and I start getting really, really activated by this. And it starts to stir up the stuff that's been going on with me for that 10 years. And again, I was stable, emotionally stable enough to handle it, or it wouldn't have happened. But I had been working with the hypnotherapist and getting really, really good at being okay within and healing the nervous system to the point where I was not in fight or flight anymore. I lived in fight or flight mode my whole life, and I finally wasn't in it anymore. And that's when everything just divinely connected. Okay, so now I've healed to the point where I can handle it. Now I'm going to this vortex power site, which happens to also be on a mountain, which triggers that feeling in my body. And I've also been always called to Sedona, and I know something big is going to happen there, and I don't know what it is. And then we have this giant soul retrieval that happens. So I started having the most intense feelings of I'm about to die on the mountain. They didn't make any sense. It didn't really feel like it was coming from me, but it was this like other voice and extreme feelings of I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. And I had to keep like checking myself, like, what is wrong with you? Like, you're not even halfway up this hike yet. You're not going to die. Like, there's children walking the path beside you. There were some places that were extremely steep and a little scary, but I mean, there were literal children doing it. So definitely wasn't about to die. So it was like really made no sense for the extreme feelings that it was like, it didn't fit the scenario, right? Like it was out of place, this amount of fear. And this voice that kept saying, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. I'm like, whoa, where is this coming from? So when I went back to the hotel, I really tuned in. Where is this coming from? I had a Moldavite bath. Yes, that's a thing. You can get Moldavite bath salts. I'm not sure I would recommend it. It was so intense. But anyway, I get into this Moldavite bath. So I'm really amplifying everything because Moldavite, I get called the Moldavite priestess a lot because when people start to work with me, they experience what Moldavite creates, and that's a purge. Moldavite raises your frequency up to like align you to your highest possible version of you, like your highest self, right? If it raises you up, then if you have like a huge spike in your frequency, you experience what's known as the purge effect, and everything starts purging that is not aligned with that highest version of you. So anything that's heavier than that, lower than that, pulling you down in any way, not aligned with, if you want to be your highest self, you got to let this go to be that version of you, it all purges to the surface. So that's what it's like to work with me. Very intense. And that's what it's like to have a Moldavite bath after a soul retrieval starts kicking in on a mountain on a vortex in friggin' Sedona. It was like maybe not the best idea, but it brought it on as strong as it possibly could. So I get in this bathtub and it hits so hard. I start like my body starts naturally wanting to like spin in like the divine feminine direction of counterclockwise, and all of a sudden, without having any information about the lifetime or what happened or who it was yet, this grief hits. It hits me so hard like a tidal wave, and I am freaking sobbing in this bath by myself, like scream crying. If that's a thing, that's how bad it was. Like, it was so bad. It was like sobbing, scream crying, like this tidal wave just hit that needed to come out. And I gave myself over to it because I have understanding of it. If it's happening, you're ready. You can handle this. And I knew it was a soul retrieval. I just friggin' knew it too, even without the confirmation. So I'm like scream crying and in the bath and all the things. I was in there a long time and I cried the whole time. Like I fully emptied myself and my soul of any grief that I could have been holding on to. I was in there over an hour and I was out of breath. I was exhausted. I was so drained. All I could do is I pretty much just go to sleep afterwards. And then I started having all these dreams as I was sleeping of this version of me. She started telling me her name. She started telling me what happened to her in her life. Her name was Jura, and she was in Kosovo, or what we would call Kosovo. I don't know how old that country is, but that's where she was on the earth. And she was this very independent and fierce personality, like a lot more fierce and bold than me. A lot more outgoing, a lot more like no shyness at all. She was bold. She laughed loudly. She danced. She was a free spirit. And back, I don't know the year, to be honest with you, of when it was. I don't know that I ever got that information. I just know it was on Earth and it was like a long time ago. And back whenever that was very frowned upon for women to be that way. She was unmarried and of an age when that was also unacceptable, but her mother had died and she was acting as the woman of the household. Her father adored her. She had little sisters. She wasn't interested in getting married. She was interested in being successful and running the business with her father and being very independent and having her freedom. And she was dating and she was, enjoying that aspect of life and being human and food and dance and friends. And she was happy. But there were men in the village that were like very, I guess what we would consider now to be super old fashioned or super, I don't know what kind of religion it might have been, whatever it was. And they decided that she was like a harlot, or what would you use back then in those terms? Like a whore, a slut, something, just because she was an independent woman that didn't want to get married. And so they decided there was 3 of them, and they decided to, that is so weird. As soon as I start talking about it in detail, I literally feel that version. Like she's still, obviously, like this is inside of me, right? I feel Jura like perk up and start listening. Like, what are you talking about? Why are you talking about my story? It's so weird. So the integration continues, obviously, because it still feels a little bit separate. But anyway, they decided to like, when her father was like a fish marketer. They did a lot of fishing. They sold fish at the market. She was very good at it because she was very friendly and she loved the marketplace and she knew everybody by name. And so they always chose her stall to buy from because she was this bright, beautiful, loving, funny, sweet woman. And so there was also that there were these men that were very resentful that maybe their stalls weren't doing as well as hers or whatever. So anyway, on her way home one time from the market, they accosted her in the street and they tried to like have their way with her. And she was very feisty and strong and she, kicked and fought them off. And because she was too much of a problem and she wasn't going to allow herself to be raped in that way, they decided to just get rid of her. Like her body, her life didn't matter. And they just dragged her over to the edge of like a cliff, whatever their village was built on. There was a lot of like high, steep cliffs, and they just dragged her over to the edge past the road and tossed her over the cliff. And she died. And so it was like a lot of stuff made a lot of sense for a lot of stuff that I felt in this life around being uncomfortable in the company of men, if I don't know them, and the heights thing and my body doing that and feeling like a lot more reserved and almost like hiding a little bit. And so once we got through a lot of the grief and I started getting to know this beautiful version of myself, and she was showing me versions of her dancing and laughing loudly. And as over the days and weeks, as we started to like integrate, I saw my personality changing into like a more joyful, vibrant, boisterous, feisty version of myself. And I think a lot of people saw that online. My content started to change a lot. And there was a lot of like deep inner healing around, my fear around men and my relationship with men in my life. That happened as well. And it's just every time a big shift happens, over the last, it's been a couple months since Sedona, but every time I see something big shifting within, I'm always like, it's the Jura effect. It's her again. It's her again, encouraging me to get healthier. She was very like, she treated her body like a temple, and she ate very clean. And I'm all of a sudden feeling this urge to change the way that I eat, and being more active and being more outgoing and feisty and colorful, and not at all censoring my language, like allowing myself to speak the way that I would speak off camera, on camera. And now it's like this, I'm calling it my unapologetic authentic phase. I'm unapologetically authentic, or some people will call it my I don't give a fuck phase, where I am just like, I don't give a fuck. And I'm just able to fully go, like, be that version of me in my business online. There's no longer two versions. And so anybody here that is feeling like you are one version of yourself on camera, on Instagram or on YouTube or wherever your platform is, and a whole other version of yourself behind the camera, that's a problem. You need to really step into unapologetic authenticity, because that's your power. That's actually how you would magnetize and attract all the good to you, is when you don't wear any masks, when you are, and it doesn't mean being an asshole. Unapologetic authenticity means being yourself fully. And so if you've always been a doormat, like I was kind of a bit of a doormat, it all of a sudden means having really firm boundaries with people and speaking my truth. But if on the other end of things, you've always kind of been this like overly egoic, like pretending to have false confidence, what it might mean for you is actually softening. So it means coming back to your true self and taking off whatever kind of mask it is that you've been wearing. But anyway, that's a whole other thing, isn't it? I actually, if anyone's interested in that, I did a IG Live with Andrew Rowe, and you can find it on my IG page, and it's called Unapologetic Authenticity. And we talk all about that. We go really in depth. So go and check that out if you're interested. So that's just one of my, I don't want this video to be any longer, because holy hell, look at the time. So I won't go into all of the other soul retrievals, but I will link up the Sedona one for you, and I will link up the Orion one for you that you can see. And when it comes to the childhood one, I actually used inner child work, pictures of myself, and and I found like this old book of poetry that I wrote when I was like 12 or 13, and I read it. And so I was like using that frequency to access that version of myself. And that's when I went through most of my stuff. Was probably, it was a lot, but there was like a really bad some really bad events that happened to me at like age 13. So that for me was like the prime time. And so I found that book of poetry and I read it, and that was kind of my doorway into it as well. So like I said at the beginning of this, if you're trying to heal your childhood, use old photos, old journals, old creative projects, favorite items, whatever it is, to access that version of you. So I spent a couple of weeks kind of like diving deep into that version of myself and trying to remember who she was and talk to her. And then this is the soul retrieval from childhood thing. Okay, because we've already talked about the Jura stuff. And so I remember laying in bed one night and having, it was just a feeling. It wasn't nearly as dramatic as Jura. It was this feeling. I felt something come from the left and like slam into my body. And I was like, oh my God, what just happened? Like energetically, it was so, like, you probably could have seen it. It was so real. It slammed into me. And at that point, I was, I think, maybe I don't know how old I was. This was a while ago though, again, probably like about 10 years ago or so. And this 13-year-old version of me just slammed into my body. And I remember being like, oh my God. And I had all these memories unlocked. And it was like, oh my God, I forgot I used to say this. This was like something I always said, like a catchphrase that I said. Oh my God, I forgot I used to think this or wear this or like this. It was like this chapter was unlocked for me. And I was like, I get to be that. And this, I get to be this super poetic, like, she was so deep and so poetic and so thoughtful and very broody. Like she brooded over everything, this version of me, this 13-year-old girl. And that came back into somebody that was very much like a little bit toxically love and light at that time in my life. Like everything's great, everything's fine, I'm super positive. When you smash those things together, it created so much more balance. And I was like, oh, that's who I am. Oh, okay. So now I can use this like love and light thing with the broody poet, and it made so much more sense together. So that was my experience with like a soul retrieval as like for the childhood. So let me know in the comments below, what do you feel like? What is going on with you? Do you feel like you have past lives that need a soul retrieval, or is it a childhood, inner child retrieval, or even teenager like what I was? And do you feel emotionally stable enough to handle that? Have you been doing the inner work? Because that's really important, or it won't be unlocked for you. And the more healing that you do on yourself, the more intense things you get given back. And so this is such a blessing, you know, to be on earth at this time. The energy here is rife for somebody that wants to heal more than one lifetime. So in this one lifetime alone, I've healed so many lifetimes, and I'm going to keep going and going until it goes as far as you want to go. If it goes as far as you'll take it. So just keep going. Imagine all the layers of your soul that you could heal, because we are on a planet that is on an ascension path, and it's so beautiful. Okay. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to love your questions. If somebody's wanting to work with me on this, and you feel called, okay, she gets it. This is who I trust. This is who I want to trust to handle this very personal, sensitive thing. I would love to work with you. We can do an Akashic reading. We can do a quantum healing, which is where we can do a soul retrieval. Also, though, remember that there is a free Akashic journey that you can get access to right now. Just click on the link in my bio, go to the freebies section. It's there for you. And then also just remember what I said at the beginning of this video, that if you're wanting to work with me and you're not sure where to start, the Starseed Academy membership is what you want. We did a group soul retrieval. That video exists inside the video, the resource library that we have. You could go and do that as soon as you join up. You get access to everything as soon as you join up. So there's multiple channels and ways for me to support you in this work. I love you so much. I wish you all the best in this journey. It is truly sacred work, this work that you do on your soul. So sacred and so important, and will have lasting effects for all of your lives. So I'm going to leave it at that. I love you so much. And please remember, listen to your heart and the quiet voice within, because you are so much more than the body you are in. I love you, beautiful star seeds. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day. Bye.